إنهن يغلبن الكريم ويغلبهن اللئيم فأرجو أن أكون كريما مغلوبا من لئيم غالب. He said, fear Allah in women. They may control a gentleman. He said women may control a gentleman. If you are a gentleman, they may control you. They may even boast about being controlling you. But they may be controlled by a rascal who hit them, who beat them here. And he said, but for me, I prefer myself being a gentleman to be controlled by women than a rascal to control them. This was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also set an example of treating women. If you need that example, don't go to United Nations Declaration. Don't go to any declaration. I would invite you as an individual, whether Muslim or a non-Muslim, to go and dig deep to the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam of how to treat women, how to treat men and women, how to treat children. The right of a child or the right of women, all these things are things that the Prophet set an example. He was a child welfare activist rather than a child right activist. He was a woman welfare activist rather than a woman's right activist. So let us take it from him rather than going anywhere else. He was very understanding and considerate. Another value of the Prophet, he was very brave. Don't see him like that. Generous, very kind, very gentle, and you take him for granted. Of course, if it is about him, he can be very, very humble. But when it is about the truth, when it is about the Quran, when it is about the Sunnah, when it is about making, doing justice to people, he is very, very, very brave. And the companions, the bravest of the companions, the most courageous of the companions, they can definitely give you an example. They give you an example of his bravery. During the war, some of them would run away, but the Prophet would remain in war. And Hunayn is an example of that. Uhud is an example of that. The bravest and the most courageous of the Sahabas, they bear witness. They bore witness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam bravery. Then he was very, very, very brave when it comes to the truth. So the measurement, all these are measurements that we have given you fi khalqin wa fi khuluqin. And we have given you when it comes to his appearance, we have also given you when it comes to his good conduct. Now another dimension of him that will tell us who the Prophet is about his greatness. And the measurement of greatness in the language of today, when you read the books of even the non-Muslims, if you read a book Al-Khalidun Al-Mi'ah, the 100 immortals, and their leader is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you read books of some Orientalists, then you can see those Orientalists who have academic honesty, when they read the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and compare the Prophet with many leaders of the past and present, they have reached a conclusion that he is the best. Al-Khalidun Al-Mi'ah. Lamartine, for example, in his book, My Trip to Turkey, talk about the Prophet. And he said that the Prophet could not be less than what he was. He was the embodiment of all good values. That is why he could not be less than Mustafa. He could not be less than Muntaka. He could not be less than Al-Mahi. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So these people, they said, if you want to know the greatness of a great man, you have to you have to measure him through three things. The limitedness of means in his disposal. He said, if you look at the Prophet and measure the Prophet, the limitedness of the means in his disposal when he came to Mecca, and the elapse of time, a short time that he spent in Mecca and Medina, and the achievements that he realized, then you can definitely see the greatness of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam compared with other leaders of the world. The world has witnessed many philosophers. They have witnessed many great people. They have witnessed many emperors. But if you compare the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his realization in this world of physics, economically, socially, and politically, and you measure, you assess the Prophet based on these three things: limitedness of the means, and the shortness of the time, and the greatness of his achievement, then you cannot say but he was Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet came to Mecca having nobody to follow him. In fact, the Prophet came to Mecca and started his da'wah when he was 40. Imagine many of the emperors and great people, they started achieving when they are 20 or 25, sweating, fighting. Before you reach 50 or 60, then you have achieved a lot. The Prophet ﷺ was an ummi. He was unlettered. He was illiterate. He was unknown, walking in the streets of Mecca, sometimes going in isolation in the Ghar of Hira, unknown. But at the age of 40, he started his achievement, having no means at all. People like Bilal, people like Suhaib, the weakest of the generation, started to believe in him, and they were persecuted. And the crocodiles of Mecca, the big men of Mecca, they were all opposed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So he had a very limited means. And the shortest period of time, 13 years in Mecca, 10 years in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ was able to achieve a lot. Then ﷺ was definitely the greatest man. And if you want to know who was the Prophet ﷺ, then you also measure him against his product. If you look at the Sahaba, Umar, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and all of those people whom the Prophet changed in a blink of an eye, from being a very cruel, very brutal individual to the most merciful on earth, and they were able to expand Islam from Medina to the borders of France within 25 years, when Tariq ibn Ziyad stood in the foot of Jabal al-Tariq, Gibraltar, and said, had your wall not stopped here, I would have spread the message wherever it take me. So he turned those people. Then sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the one who was able to harmonize this wall and the next wall, and created the best civilization given to mankind, socially, economically, and politically. We have been told that the time is up. So this, in a nutshell, what I have humbly to give to the people, because the Prophet ﷺ in an ocean. We hope that given the time next week, we will be able to go ahead. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Kaf ha ya ayn sad. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واستعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا.